Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be a makeup haul update. I posted quite a few makeup hauls recently and I've had a chance to play with the different products and get my thoughts together, so I'm here to share them with you. If you're new to my channel, I'm Yori. Welcome. I hope you'll enjoy my video and my content and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. Now let's go ahead and get into this haul update. So I kind of grouped everything into classes of makeup products, and so I'm going to go through them that way. I'm going to let you know if the product is something that I think is truly special, if it's just okay, or if it did not work for me. So let's start with complexion products. And the first one I wanted to mention was this Revolution Conceal and Hydrate Radiance Foundation with Hyaluronic Acid. This is a medium to full coverage foundation. I used this foundation in a first impression video where the shade was completely wrong for me. I actually wore that makeup throughout the day and I was really impressed with how the foundation wore as the hours went on. It's one of those foundations that looks better the longer it's applied to your skin. And so I did decide to go and exchange it for a different shade. Now in store, they don't have the entire shade range and I didn't want to gamble online with the shades anymore. The original one I had was F7 and I found that one to be too pink and too light for my skin tone, like you may have seen in that video. So when I swatched them, they had the shade 8, then they had the shade 9 and 9.5. And 9 was again very, very pink and 9.5 appeared to be a little bit too deep, although right now I'm kind of wishing I had picked that one up instead, but I grabbed 8, which was the only other one they had in store, and it's supposed to be for medium skin tones with peachy undertones, but honestly it still pulls a little bit pink. It's the foundation that I'm wearing on my skin today, and I did bronze it up to make the color work a little bit better. This one does work a little bit better, but it's still pink. I definitely have better shade matches in other foundations, so for me personally this one was a fail. But if you have a more rosy undertone, I would look into this foundation because it's actually a really good one. It wears really well throughout the day, and like I said, it only looks better the longer you wear it. And I do find that it is hydrating and you can definitely build up the coverage, but if you apply a lighter layer you can achieve a much lighter coverage, which is my preference. So it was a fail for me, but it's a good product. It's just the shade range is just not quite right for people with warmer or olive undertones. I struggled with that, so just something to keep in mind. I also grabbed the concealer in the same line. I used the concealer in the same first impressions video and I had the same issue. I had picked up the concealer shade F6 thinking to go for a highlighting shade, and it was way too highlighting, way too light for me. But again, I like the way that my complexion ended up looking that day, and so I wanted to exchange it for a different shade. This one I opted for C8. I had much of the similar situation with the concealers, that they don't carry the entire shade range in Ulta Beauty. Didn't want to gamble online and I picked up this one. I find the shade to be really good. It's the concealer that I'm wearing today, but this is a full coverage concealer. In my opinion, it's not really that hydrating. I have other concealers that I find much more hydrating, including one that I'll show you next. So I think that this is going to be a concealer if you are a younger person. If you don't have too many under eye wrinkles, then maybe this is something you can enjoy because it's a little bit thicker of a consistency and the coverage is quite full. In my opinion, you kind of have to find a balance between coverage and lightweight in terms of a concealer for someone of a more mature age range, and for me this wasn't it. To me it's just a little bit too heavy, a little bit too drying, and I've been using a color corrector which I'll also share, which allows me to use a little bit less product. So when I use that I don't need something quite so heavy, and so this isn't really a favorite, although I wouldn't call it a fail either. It's just okay. This is the concealer that has been working much better for me. This one is by Kylie Cosmetics and it is their skin concealer. I did play with these quite a bit in store. They have the entire shade range in store, which is why I wanted to try her concealer, and this one is in the shade Maple. I do still have the outer packaging which looks like this. It kind of looks like camouflage, which I think is pretty clever for a concealer type product, and I actually really like this. The component is very similar to the Wet n Wild liquid lipsticks or the Jeffree Star liquid lipsticks. They kind of have that standard shape, even the Dosas Colors liquid lipsticks. And one thing that I really like about this one is the doe foot applicator. It reminds me quite a bit of the Urban Decay Naked concealer. I really loved that Urban Decay concealer, but I understand it's being discontinued. I still have one. I just caught a whiff of the concealer. It has kind of a strong smell, a little bit on the paint side, although not as much as the Wet n Wild foundation. But anyway, as I was mentioning, the Urban Decay concealer I think is being discontinued, and I really love that concealer. It was my holy grail for a long time. I have one open and one on backup. I do enjoy this formula and I do find it very similar to that one. It's a lot more lightweight, a lot less coverage. It's a little bit more runny, but a little bit goes a long way, especially on top of the color corrector that I have. Aside from the smell, I really don't have any complaints. I really do like the doe foot applicator, and with one dip of the wand, I can do both eyes. I don't do the whole concealer all over the face kind of thing. I just do it under my eyes and maybe a little bit underneath my nose. This one is not too drying because it is a little bit more of that lightweight formula. It absorbs to my skin really well. I can wear it with or without foundation, and it blends really nicely and looks really natural. So this is something that I would recommend if you can find a shade. I think it comes in like 30 shades, and the shade Maple is really good for me. It's not necessarily highlighting, but you can wear it with or without foundation and it works really well. So this is a good one. In case you wanted to see swatches of the two concealers, this more pink one is the Makeup Revolution in shade C8, and this one is the Kylie in the shade Maple. So you can see how the Makeup Revolution definitely pulls more pink. I did also pick up the Kylie powder, and it comes in this black matte, soft matte kind of box. You don't get a lot of product in here. That was one thing that I noticed when I used this in my first impression. I got the shade beige, and I did find that the color of the powder was a little bit darker than you would think for something called beige. And at that point, I actually liked it because my foundation was so light. I thought that this would help darken it a little bit. In hindsight, I think the color is actually really good for me after using it quite a bit. It's a powder that I can use again to set my concealer with or without foundation, and to me that's a really good sign of a good color match. It is a slightly mattifying powder, but it's not drying, so it's really good on my dry skin, and I've actually really been impressed with it. I'm glad that I got a color shade rather than just translucent, because I have a lot of translucent powders already, and this one would be the lightest shade other than one that I think is called Rosy. So you can see here, this one definitely has more of a warmer tone to it, and I think it's better suited for someone of my skin tone. I do like that they released like about 6 shades in this line, so it's very inclusive in terms of shade ranges, and the powder is actually pretty good. You just don't get that much product. You're getting 10 grams in this product. The under eye corrector that I keep mentioning is this one by Charlotte Tilbury. This is fairly new to the Charlotte Tilbury line, and it looks like a tiny mini compact of the magic powder, or not the magic powder, I forget what, the Flawless Finish powder. It's hard for me to open it with these nails. The compact does come with a mirror, and there is your peachy shade. I picked mine up in shade number 2, which is the medium shade. I also used this product in that first impressions video, but I have since been using it more, both on makeup and no makeup days, and the way that I like to apply it is with a concealer brush. I dip the brush in there and I apply it just underneath my under eye right here, and also in the inner corner of my eye where I tend to get a little bit darkness, and it definitely instantly brightens, and it allows me to use a lot less concealer, a lot less powder over it as well, which reduces that under eye creasing and dryness that I typically encounter with a lot of under eye products. So it's been helping me out. During that video, it didn't super impress me in terms of a color corrector, but I think one of the things that sets this one aside from others that I've tried is that this one is not super emollient. A lot of color correctors have a tendency to be a more oily formula, and even though my under eyes are dry, I feel that this one has a tendency to sink in just a little bit better, and so I actually like it. I don't think it's, you know, a superstar kind of product, but it's been helping me out. I enjoy it, and I'm glad I have it in my collection after all. This is another product that I have been using pretty consistently after that video. It's from Touch in Sol. It's the Glassy Pretty Filter Glassy Skin Balm, and this is like a priming skin balm hybrid with a moisturizer. I like the container, although it is a little bit misleading in terms of how much product you're actually getting in there, and that's because of the way it's manufactured. So you can see that the lid actually goes over the entire pot, and so there's not as much in there as you might think. The total amount of product that you're getting is 1 ounce, which is pretty typical for a priming product. It has a very kind of skincare kind of fragrance. I'm not sure if it has fragrance in the ingredients. Just a quick look at the ingredients. I really don't see fragrance ingredients, and I actually see a lot of really hydrating ingredients like glycerin, and you have shea butter. Oh, there is fragrance. It does have fragrance. It has sunflower seed oil, a few paraffins, soybean oil, flower water, flower extract. It has some dimethicones in them as well, but I've actually really been enjoying this product, and I use it pretty much the way they recommend as a last step in my skincare routine, where it gives you a super hydrated look. My skin looks definitely very glassy glassy and very dewy when I wear this, and so when I'm wearing more natural to mattifying foundations on my skin, they have a tendency to look a little bit more luminous, which is my preferred finish. So I have been reserving this specific product for those types of foundation. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the sticky characteristic that I really enjoy in my Ciate primer, but I think as a primer for hydration, it works really well. If you have oily skin, I don't think you're going to enjoy this. It's very slippery. It makes your skin feel very slippery, and it may not necessarily work for your skin type, but you can let us know in the comment section down below, because I know a lot of people receive this in their BoxyCharm, and I imagine a lot of people are going to be trying it out. So I like it. I think it's a good product, and I enjoy the primers by Touch in Sol. Next, we have the Anastasia eyeshadow primer. I have the mini version of it, and I had been trying this product out for a while, and I knew I liked it, but I couldn't figure out why I liked it until I saw somebody who didn't enjoy this product mention it on their channel. So she was saying that it was a little bit drying on her eyes, and it made her eyes feel like a little bit tight when it dried and when she was applying her eyeshadows. And I actually have eyelids that I don't know if they're sweaty or a little bit oily, but they do have like some sort of film which creases my eyeshadows really frequently. And I find something like this is actually a little bit drying, so it absorbs those natural oils that my skin produces only in that area, and it prevents my eyeshadows from creasing. It also does increase the pigmentation of my different eyeshadows. Matte shadows blend beautifully over it even if you don't set it. I am using it today with an eyeshadow palette I'll share shortly, but I do enjoy this specific product. I think it's a good one. I like that it comes in a mini. I just think that they should have a lot more shades in this one. I know that people have compared it to the P. Louise base, and I can see why, although I think that this P. Louise base is a little bit more emollient. But here you can see the shade, and you can see it's much lighter than my skin tone. So whenever I use it, I either don't apply it all the way to my brow bone, or I have a tendency to blend my eyeshadows a little bit higher so that it can look a little bit more natural. So I think that they could really benefit from releasing, you know, 2 or 3 more shades. But I do think that it's a good product. I haven't experienced the thing that people have complained about where the product kind of comes out on its own, but I apply just tiny little amounts to my eyelids. A little bit goes a long way. It has only a 6-month shelf life, so I honestly wouldn't recommend picking up the full size. I don't think you would get through it even if you applied it every single day. It's quite a lot of product that you get. In this mini, I threw away the box already, but in this mini you get 1/4 of an ounce. So I think that's a very good amount for the type of product that it is. So I think this one actually is something a little bit special. It's a little bit more than just using concealer as an eyeshadow base, and it does address my specific concerns. So this was actually a win for me. Another definite win is from Marc Jacobs. This is something that I shared in a haul video where I showed you some really amazing finds at TJ Maxx. This one is the Dewdrops in the shade Fantasy. So it was from, I believe, this year's summer collection or last year's summer collection. The original one was the Do You Coconut Dewdrops, and that one is a lot more champagne in tone. This one is a little bit more rose gold, if you can see it right there. And you might think that it's gonna be a little bit too dark for me looking at it on my skin, but when I actually apply it to the tops of my cheekbones, it looks really beautiful and natural, because of course you aren't gonna be wearing such a heavy swatch on your face. A little tiny bit goes a very long way, and it's just a beautiful highlighter. I definitely recommend that one. Of course, I only paid $8 and it's like a $50 product, so I definitely hit the jackpot with that one. But I do own the other shade, the Do You one, and those are, like I said, more champagne, and I did pay full price for those. You can also keep an eye out on the Marc Jacobs website. They frequently have like friends and family type sales, and sometimes they even do like little bundle deals that include the Dewdrop. Overall, I find these to be a really versatile product. I can use them as a highlighter on my bare skin, which when I go to work, I don't really wear foundation, so it works really well that way. It works well mixed in with your foundation or on top of your foundation as well. I really like them. My favorite way to apply them is to apply a little bit to the back of my hand and use a damp sponge to blend it onto my cheeks, and I get a very sheer, luminous, glowing, beautiful application of it. I love these, a definite win. I have a few powder highlights to share with you today. The first two are from Melt Cosmetics. I've been wanting to really try these to really get a feel for how I feel about Melt products. I have a lip product to share with you as well because their holiday collection is so beautiful. It's themed after the Day of the Dead. I think it's gonna launch Black Friday. I'm hoping that they do some sort of pre-sale. I want the whole thing. Two beautiful eyeshadow palettes, a highlighter with like a sugar skull on it. I think it's 3 liquid lipsticks, some eyeliners. The whole thing just looks so beautiful and I want everything. So these are the two that I picked up. They're the two newest ones to their line. And I have the shade Genesis, which is the peachy one, and Morning Star, which is the more kind of white gold one. These highlights I find to be quite intense. They're a little bit, they feel a little bit glittery to me. So this one is Genesis, which really ends up being more of a blush on me. And then there you have the shade Morning Star, which ends up being a little bit icy on me. So in reality, neither shade is really perfect for me, although I can definitely make this one work. And I kind of have a tendency to turn to it when I'm wearing more cool tone looks. You can see that this one definitely has the most use of the two. The embossing on the powder of this one is almost gone there. So you can see that I've actually done a little damage. On the other hand, the Genesis shade I've strictly worn as a luminous blush, but if you don't enjoy glowy blushes where texture will definitely be highlighted, then I would probably avoid this one if you are my skin tone. But if you have a deeper skin tone, this could potentially be a beautiful highlight on you. The other one, the Morning Star, if it's icy on me, it would probably be icy on you. So there are those two swatches so you can get an idea. So even though I like the formula, because I didn't quite nail my shade, I can't really say that I have a preference one way or the other. I think they're okay. Like I said, a little bit glittery. They do highlight texture just a little bit, and I prefer it buffed in with a brush, like really buffed into the skin. I think they're pretty, but I'm not in love with them at this point. I do really like the packaging. It's magnetized closure. It has a very nice mirror. I haven't removed the little sticker that's on the mirror there, but I hardly use these compacts as mirrors anyway. I will be storing Genesis with my blushes. It kind of gives me kind of like that NARS Orgasm kind of look to my cheeks, and I already have NARS Orgasm, so these two, they didn't really add anything to my collection, but I was very curious about the formula, so that's that on those. I also have this one from Milk Makeup. This one is in the shade Blitz, and I have shared my experience with the shade Lit in the past, but I had been trying out this one a little bit more, and I have to say that it's not the same. It's not the same formula as Lit. Lit is very creamy, wet looking, but also more of a metallic type highlighter. This one has a little bit of glitter to it. It's a little bit more like a rose gold formula as well. So there is Blitz. It doesn't show the glitter right now, but I find when I apply it to the face, there is a little bit of glitter, and if you're using a brush that's a little bit more diffuse, a little less dense, you do get the little glitter particles. Now as the day progresses, the glitter kind of falls away, and then you have that more wet metallic kind of highlighter, but at the onset you do have a slight amount of glitter with this specific highlighter. That is what the shade looks like. The shade does work really well on my skin tone, but I have to say that between the two that I have, which are Blitzed and Lit, Lit is going to be my favorite because it doesn't have that initial glitter at the onset, and it's one that I feel comfortable wearing to work and things like that. This is beautiful, don't get me wrong, and it looks beautiful as the day wears on as well, but there is that initial bit of glitter in the formula. So I would definitely suggest swatching all of those in store. I think they come in about 4 or 5 shades, and since the two that I have are different formulas, I would recommend checking them out in store before making a purchase, but I definitely recommend Lit. It's been in a favorites video before, and though I do love this one, I don't love it as much as the other one. I do know a lot of people got these in PR, and so there was a lot of fuss around them on YouTube, but I purchased them myself. I think they're worth the price tag, and I think there's something really special within this formula. They're really nice. I'm definitely preferring the Milk over the Melt. The next product that I wanted to mention was a bronzer, and I used that in the first impressions as well. This really helped me salvage the bad foundation match. This is the Too Faced Baked Luminous Glow Bronzer in the shade Sweet Tea. Unlike many Too Faced products, this one does not have a fragrance, and it's really just 2 tones of a bronzer. One side is more luminous, the other side is a little bit more matte, but typically what I'll do is just swirl the 2 shades together, and this is the bronzer that I'm wearing today. So this is the more luminous side. Can barely see it, but it's there. This is the more mattified side, and those are the 2 swirled together. You can see you get more payoff if you stop trying to get one side versus another. So I really like it. I think that it has a very nice sheen and adds a luminosity to the skin. It's not too cool tone, but not too warm tone either, which makes it a nice bronzer for tan skin tones, in my opinion. It only comes in 1 shade though, so that's definitely room for improvement. And another area in which it could be improved is the packaging. It's super, super bulky. This is a baked bronzer, so it's one of those products that are sort of domed, but they could have packaged it a little bit better. This is very bulky and it takes up a lot of space in my drawer, and then it's kind of an odd shape. It's cute. It's definitely cute, but it's a little bit of an odd shape and hard to store. But I do like the bronzer. I think it looks really good on my skin. So that is a win. I'm going to mention one eyeshadow palette, which is the eyeshadow palette that I'm wearing today. I did wear it in that first impressions video, and it is the Persona Cosmetics Identity 2 eyeshadow palette. So I'm wearing a slightly more bold look with the palette today, and that is what the shades look like. I'm wearing pretty much every single matte shade, which are these 2 right here and these 2. The others have some sort of sheen. Actually, this one is matte as well if you were trying to get a more warm toned look. So I'm going to swatch a couple of these for you. I'm going to swatch some of the ones I haven't used. I've used the palette quite a bit already. So here are what some of the swatches look like. This one is a matte shade and the other 3 are shimmers. The shimmers apply much better with your fingers than they do with a brush. So here you can see one shimmer, another shimmer. That's the more purple toned one, and this one is a little bit more reddish tone. So those are 2 swipe swatches in terms of how many times I moved my finger around, and you can see that even the matte swatches really beautifully. They apply really beautifully to the eye as well. I really like the palette. I think she did a great job with it. Really pretty swatches, and of course you can see it apply to my eyelid right now over the Anastasia primer. I think it applies beautifully. This palette kind of reminds me of a condensed version of the Urban Decay Born to Run palette because it has those nice pops of color, but still very wearable. I've been using it for work quite a bit. It looks a lot brighter on camera than it does in photos, and to be honest, what's showing up on camera is very true to the shades in person. So hopefully that helps you decide if this is an eyeshadow palette you want to add to your collection. Persona is a brand that is now carried at Ulta, and that's where I purchased my palette. I think this is really nice quality and very versatile. It could be very good for traveling because you can get your neutral looks but also add a little bit of a pop for a lot of variety of different eye looks. I think it's a good one. If you're interested in checking that out, this was a win for me. I have a bunch of lip products and an eye brush set. Not an eye brush set, it's just a regular brush set. And this is the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe brush set collection. And I purchased it when Morphe had a specific kind of sale. I think it was like 20 or 30% off collaborations, and I purchased this then. I have used all the brushes and I have also washed them, so that's what they look like. I used them in my first impressions and I've used them quite a bit since, and I did mention that this is going to be a really good travel brush set because it's very complete with 2 exceptions. There's no eyebrow brush spoolie kind of brush in here, and there's also no gel liner kind of brush. Other than that, I think it's fairly complete. I have to admit, after washing the brushes and playing with them a little bit more, they do still shed from time to time, though not as much as when they were new. And I have to say that I prefer the face brushes to the eye brushes. I found that when I was washing the eye brushes, they would fray and splay open a little bit, but I do have brush shapers, which I really love to use with a lot of my natural hair brushes, which allows them to retain their shape and it tightens the bristles up a little bit again if you allow them to dry that way. So that's what I've been doing with this set, and it works really well. well. And again, I wouldn't be heartbroken if I lost any of the brushes because they were more on the affordable side. Even though the set itself was quite expensive, I didn't pay full price. I wouldn't suggest that you necessarily go out and buy the set. I think it's okay. I think it's a very good starter set for the price and the quantity of brushes that you're getting, but the quality is not going to be the absolute best. Depending on how much you want to spend, you may be better off purchasing, you know, 4 or 5 eye brushes and 4 or 5 face brushes from a really nice line, and you can purchase that for, you know, $200 or below if you're looking at handmade Japanese brushes, which I absolutely love. But you can definitely make this work, and it would be a good starter set for someone who's just starting out in makeup. I prefer the face brushes to the eye brushes in general. I think they hold up just a little bit better. So those were okay for me. I'm glad I have them. I did mention in that video that the case doesn't really close super tightly, so I've been keeping a hairband around it to keep it shut. But when it's on my vanity, it doesn't open on its own. But again, thinking ahead to possibly traveling with it, I would definitely want to bind the case a little bit. So now we have a bunch of lip products to go through. I have these 2 Laura Mercier lip liners, which I really like, but I wouldn't necessarily say you run out to get these because the regular price for these lip liners, I believe, is around $20. I found mine at TJ Maxx as well, so I shared them in that haul. And it's so funny because I hadn't heard many people talk about them before. There's the 2 shades that I have. I have Hazelnut Tea and then Warm Poppy right underneath. So one is a really warm tone red, the other one is a beautiful nude. I do really like Hazelnut Tea. I saw Brianna Fox mention this in a favorites video, or one of her videos that she did most recently. I hadn't heard anybody mention them prior to that. I think that a lot of these lip liners went out in PR as well, but I found a couple in TJ Maxx, and for the price I paid, I think they're definitely worth it, but they're not anything like out of the ordinary where I would say go pay full price. No, I paid like $8 and I thought that was extraordinarily good, but you know, maybe 10 to 15-ish. But you can find beautiful lip liners in Max line that are going to be a little bit more affordable than these. So I love them. But again, I didn't pay full price. I did pick up a gloss from Persona, and I'm going to swatch this one for you. These smell delicious. I love the applicator of them. It's got a flat doe foot applicator, and the glosses look very pigmented in a swatch, but they add just a hint of color to your lips. So this is the Persona lip gloss, and it is in the shade Pink. It just adds a very sheer pink tone to my lips. I like it. This has been living in my purse, so I had to go dig it out. Definitely like that shade, and I like every other shade I've had in the line. I think I have all of them now. I haven't used the more orangey one just yet, but I will definitely get to that one as well. It's a beautiful, comfortable lip product. It smells good. It's super easy to reapply. It's not too sticky. Doesn't give you that stringy kind of effect. Just a hint of sheer color and really comfortable on the lips. So I definitely love those. I have a product that I bought from Jouer, and I love the packaging on this guy. Look how pretty. Look how pretty this is with the flowers. I think it's super beautiful. And this is a very sheer lip product. I have mine in the shade Amaryllis, which is a nude shade, and that's what it looks like. I have to admit, it's a little bit too nude for me, so at times I have to wear it with a lip liner like the Laura Mercier one. That's the shade right there. And when something is a little bit too nude, it kind of gives my lips kind of that milky look that isn't necessarily flattering. And I think that this lip product was intended to be a little bit more, or a little bit less high maintenance, if that makes any sense. So I can make it work with a lip liner. It's comfortable, it's very sheer, but the shade just wasn't quite right. My lips are too pigmented for something like this, so I wear a lip liner to make it work, and it looks really pretty in that case. Again, I have the shade Amaryllis. This is the lighter of the shades, and you can get it in deeper shades. It's kind of similar to the YSL lip shines or tint and oil kind of lipsticks, but I do prefer those a lot more. Unfortunately, they're also like twice the price. So if you wanted something a little less expensive, these would be a nice option. These don't have any kind of fragrance, the YSL ones. Yeah, there's no fragrance, just smells like makeup. The YSL ones smell like mango. They smell delicious, and I love them so much. Again, I can make that one work with a lip liner. Next, I have a lip product from MAC, and this is one of their Love Me lipstick, their newest formula. formula. I have the shade 408 Bated Breath, and I think it's a great shade for fall. It looks a lot deeper in the bullet than it does when you actually apply it, and it's kind of rose kind of shade, if you can see right there. It's not a fully opaque kind of lip product. It's just a little bit sheer, so when you apply it, it feels super hydrating on the lips. And this is a color that's a very nice chameleon kind of color. What I mean by that is that if I'm wearing red, it pulls a little more red. If I'm wearing pink, it looks a little more pink. And so it makes it very versatile in terms of what I'm wearing. So this is one that I've been wearing to work quite a bit because I think it's a really nice fall color without being vampy, which is not something I go for at work specifically. So it's a really nice color to sort of add a little bit of the season into your makeup for your daily routine, but not be too over the top. It's a really comfortable formula, and again, I really like the shade. It's Bated Breath, and I wore it, I think, in that first impressions video as well. I also wanted to show you this lip product by Nabla. This is the first product by Nabla that I try, and it is a liquid lipstick. It's a matte liquid lipstick, but this one says Dreamy Metal. And what I found was I purchased mine from Ulta Beauty, and when I hauled it and first swatched it, I noticed like it had a little bit of shimmer to it, and it does. It's not metallic, but it's not matte. It's got like a satin kind of, it looks like you apply a satin lipstick. It does dry down matte, and it's really comfortable. It's a super comfortable formula. It's a little bit moussey. I like the color. I like the applicator, but when you apply it, it looks like you're wearing a satin finish lipstick. So that is the shade that I have right there. It's kind of similar to the MAC one, although this one is definitely a little bit more rose in tone, and the MAC has a little bit more red. The shade I picked up was Grace. I was really looking for a matte liquid lipstick to try out their formula, and this one isn't exactly it. There is a little bit of a metallic kind of finish to it, like a satin finish kind of lipstick. Very, very pigmented, very opaque, but it's quite comfortable on the lips. It just does transfer a little bit. So if you're looking for something transfer proof, I wouldn't look in this formula, but if you like something that's long lasting and gives you a matte look, then this might be a formula that you can look at. I'm curious enough that I want to try one that is going to be fully matte. The Ulta Beauty website is not very good at describing the shades because I thought I was buying one that was matte and it turned out not to be. I would look on the Nabla website to kind of get an idea for the shades and then see if it's available on Ulta Beauty. Last but not least, I have a lip product from Melt, and this is the one that I'm wearing. It's a liquid set lipstick. It is a matte lipstick, and it's one of those, I forget what they called, something nudes, moody nudes, mood nudes. It was one of their more recent launches, and I have the shade Golden. That's the shade that I'm wearing today. It's funny because, let me swatch that on screen. It kind of looks like a little bit mustardy. In person, when all the lights are not like right on my face, it actually looks more like concealer lips, but slightly darker, especially since my lips are so pigmented. There's the shade right there. It looks more like concealer lips with an olive undertone, and actually it looks really good with my eye makeup, even though I'm looking at myself in the viewfinder and it doesn't look quite so good because my eyeshadow has a little bit, I put a little bit of a gold topper from the Persona eyeshadow palette, which picks up the tone in the lips, and in person it actually looks really nice. Edgy. I wouldn't wear it to work, but it's different. It's different, and actually I wanted to try out the formula again because I'm so interested in that holiday collection. It's $300 for the whole thing. Well, I mean $295, but you know, $300. And I just wanted to try out everything that I have from Melt and get an idea if it'll be worth it to pick up the entire collection. So that is the matte liquid lipstick. It is transfer proof. It dries down completely. It is a matte formula. I wouldn't call it the more comfortable that I've worn in the past, but it's not the most drying. So it's not like Kylie or ColourPop or Anastasia. It's also not like the most comfortable formulas that I've worn. So the more comfortable ones that I would say are Dose of Colors, Jeffree Star, and Galactic. Those are super comfortable on the lips. So it's somewhere in between, but it's not as drying as people have said. But I think that maybe they were referring to their matte bullet lipsticks as being very, very drying. Just the same, I think it's a really interesting color. Definitely don't have anything like that in my collection, and I'm happy to have it. So those are all the products that I wanted to update you on today. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Let me know what you think if you tried any of the products that I shared with you today, and what is your opinion of them. I think, you know, different strokes for different folks, and the more different opinions that we have based on your preferences and skin types, then the more useful the video will be to anyone that is curious about any of these products. So definitely share your thoughts down below. I love reading your comments and chatting makeup with you. So if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, as I would love to have you join my makeup family. I hope you're doing really well, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.